Right. Okay. So, Rebecca Downs, we're very lucky to have you today to probe the darkest parts of the music industry.
Oh
Uh,
God.
no, it's not really. What it is, and we obviously had a bit of a chat about it before, is just doing some interviews really to let you and others really just share some of your experience. This is, aimed largely at people pretty much like myself. I've always declared self-interest in this one. These are the questions I want to ask, um, and it's really just to give people that first stepping stone into the professional world of getting gigs, getting whether it's releasing music or getting gigs, or how to approach and how to appear, and that kind of really a toolkit. And it's not actually easy. I know from personal experience, you can read around, but it's not easy to get real first-hand experience. So I know lots about you, but no one watching this will. So could you give me a quick potted history of Rebecca Downs?
Yeah, sure. Started gigging when I was like 13 years old, I guess, properly, and been doing that ever since. The Rebecca Downs band has been going for probably now in this guy's about 10 years. So me and my songwriter Steve Burkitt co-songwrite everything together. We've won, some UK Blues Awards. We've had national radio play, playlisting. And we've been very lucky to get that. We've gigged, in Europe and all around the UK, and we're very lucky to have, quite a very developed fan base that are very kind of for us and with us and will support us, so a small but perfectly formed fan base. So it's been, I've been in probably, I don't know, I can't even say how many bands. But in this, guys, there was the Rebecca Downs band 10 years.
Fantastic. And lots of albums.
Lots of albums, yeah, new one to come out this autumn, studio and live. And it's, and that's been a big learning experience in itself.
Excellent, excellent. So, what I wanted to ask you then, let's take it sort of from the beginning. Um, the number one thing I think is if anyone's doing grassroots stuff, so maybe they're doing open mics or maybe they're getting their first, mate lets them do a gig. Tell me about the step beyond that, because for instance, you play around the country, you're playing gigs in lots and lots of different cities. So it's not the same as having a network of people, someone who invites you up for a gig. How do you, or how would you recommend someone starts to approach from cold, if you like, so they can play in other cities and things? What's the way round you would say it's going to work?
Well, the way round that I saw it working and that I did make it work in the end was to do a lot of research about artists in my particular genre that were maybe not massively at the top of their game, but did have a following in certain areas. Reach out, number one, and be very friendly. Listen to their material, message them about it, and say basically, can I support you? For nothing.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the time, and a lot of people think that supports, even on big tours, get a lot of money, but they don't really.
Mm-hmm.
It is all about exposure. Sometimes we get paid for those, sometimes we wouldn't, but it definitely, well, the one that immediately comes to mind as an example is one that we first did, me and Steve, because obviously it's a lot cheaper for me to take out me and Steve
Mm-hmm.
than it is for me to take out me and the band,
Right.
but it still gets the name and the music out there at like a lower level. So when we were first doing that, there was an artist up in the northeast, Trevor Saul, who had been, he was really well known in the northeast and he'd got a lot of following, but also really approachable. And we had like a lot of conversations through mutual friends. So, going up and doing a gig somewhere in the northeast from Birmingham is an investment in itself,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's even just two people, because it's an investment of time and money to kind of get yourself up there and that. But I think you've got to put in that kind of work and investment, time and money in that direction to kind of break through into other areas. I know that in other genres it works differently, but for me, I'd cite that as like the breakthrough point into like the north.
Right.
And even though it was only kind of a small gig at the Cluny at the time, so maybe a couple of hundred people, 250 maybe, it really did open a lot of doors for me. So there was a lot of promoters that came there. It's always very important to talk to everyone, get to know everyone before the show, so that when you're there, you're like, okay, I need to talk to this person, that person. Trevor's really great. You know, we got up and did a song together, a bit of fun.
Yeah.
And, you know, it did that. I've got a really big following in the Northeast, and it really pinpointed and all stemmed from that nucleus.
Right.
So, and I've had people sort of say to me, oh, I'll come and support you, you know, from far away. How much will you pay me? And we've offered, you know, a monetary sum, which I didn't get a lot of the time. And they'll just turn it down, and you're like, but I can't afford to pay you anymore. If you're going to try and break into this area, that area, it's kind of what you've got to do, even though I know it's hard, you know, because I've been there.
Yeah, no, it sounds good. But I noticed the beginning of your story was at the end there, contacts that you'd already made. You'd already got to know someone. And that's not a surprise. It then expands from there. But you sort of have to get to know someone, or at least it really helps you make that first connection, doesn't it?
Yeah, 100%. And it's like I used to spend hours and nights going through, because it wasn't really Instagram for me. It never has been. It's always been about Facebook. And that's where people that like my music basically reside. So I'd be on Facebook every night, like gathering information, like looking at where people were playing, who was going to those gigs, who was commenting on those gigs, who was putting the gigs on, the venues that people seem to like more than other venues, and venues that at that time were kind of above where I was at. So, can I get a support there, or can I talk to the person that runs that venue? Or, you know, sometimes there's, you know, a team of people. And it was all just very much, and always very softly, because I think there's nothing worse than, you know, I've had this happen to me. We want to support you, and they're super, super pushy, or, you know, and it's like, no, just go, hey, you know, get to know these people. You know, they're all human beings. You can't just go in there sort of full force, you know. I think some artists do, and it's kind of, you know, how would you greet someone in person? You wouldn't do that. But I think research is number one, especially at kind of the genre that I'm in, because it doesn't revolve around streams. It revolves, you know, it is really, you know, you really have to get that contact going.
Well, I'd like to talk to you about the curve a little bit later, actually, because I think you're you put me onto it, and it's excellent. But it's about a different model, isn't it? Which can really, really benefit the new world. I'm really interested that you blended two things there. Actually, you blended really nicely, I think, the contacts and the network, which, of course, if you haven't got, you haven't got. But you then blended that with the internet, in the sense you were saying that what you can do is research the venues that might be the right kind of venues in an area, research the bands that are playing there, then go and research the people that are watching those bands and listen to them and get to know it. So you're almost getting the personal contact, you know, that kind of ability to talk about things that you would do if you'd got to know them. You've almost got some of that in place, haven't you? So when you then do get to talk to someone, you're chatting about another band, or you're chatting about people that are following, or you're chatting about why their venue is considered quite a good venue because you heard someone say X. It's almost creating that, at least making your approach much more personal, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And they respect that as well. And you've got, I think, as an artist, just remember that, you know, some of these people that run venues, and there's blues clubs in my genre, they'll get like 200 emails a week from artists. You know, they'll be fed up with that kind of thing. So if you can go and do a support somewhere, invite them along. You know, if you haven't got any say on the door, buy them a ticket.
Mm.
You know, hopefully they'll say no, I'll buy my own ticket. But
Not
you know,
all.
go up there. You know, shake. I always think go up there, shake hands. The amount of times that sometimes I've driven or we've driven as an outfit, 4 hours to do something which I didn't know what it was going to yield,
Or
but
nothing.
every time has yielded something.
Right.
And I've always come away thinking, why on earth did I even question myself with that? I needed to do that face to face. It's great on the internet, but if you can combine the two, it's way better. You're gonna get to know somebody personally, but it's such a complex area because it is so smothered. There's so many musicians, so many bands. So I think just be nice, be personable, and not too pushy.
Yeah. No, I think that's take your time a little bit, isn't it? And invest in time. So, like you say, don't you meet someone and it's the kind of person you need to meet. Don't ram it down their throat. Just know that it's the person you want to meet. Get to know them, and it's the follow-up meeting or the follow-up call where you're going to move things along, isn't it? If you've met them twice and you like each other, you're in your best place to say, look, I really would like to play up here. Have you got a support gig that I can do? But that's the right time, isn't it? To meet them a couple of times, and then it's the right time to be able to sort of do that rather than
absolutely. You can't ram it. I know of artists and bands that are basically blacklisted from venues because they've just upset and harassed the person that runs the venue so much. And so you've got to be really careful. And it's a fine line, but we're all human. We don't want 20 emails from the same person a day. Calm down. Yeah. And also with artists as well, and artists that are not 18 years old, like I'm not, like you're not.
Hey.
And I wasn't when I started the Rebecca Downs band. There's no rush.
Yeah.
I kind of talk to artists sort of like mid-20s onwards, and it seems like they think there's some kind of, I've got to go 100 miles an hour because, I'm not 18 or I'm not. Calm down, there is no, if you put that extra pressure on yourself, you will come across incorrectly as well.
Yeah.
So just don't do that.
So
it's
chilled but enthusiastic, not just crazy.
Chilled, but and also see if you can get up with another artist. That's another thing.
Okay, explain
I've driven halfway across the country just to get up with someone. If they'd say, "Oh yeah, you can get up and do a song with me," I'd be like, "Okay, I'll be there."
Yeah. Just for one song, but it's a song.
Because I know. Yeah. Well, then I can go and speak to the promoter. I can speak to the agent. So, and also that's cheap for me because I'm just taking myself. So it's kind of you've got to think about it in a monetary way, because this is on every level, unfortunately, a huge monetary investment. Huge.
Yeah.
Even if you play it down like I do, even if you don't invest nowhere near as much as some others are able to invest, and I wish them well. I just don't have those kind of funds. I've still invested a hell of a lot.
Right. Yeah. No, it's good. So you basically, if I paraphrase, don't be a jerk, and then we'll move on.
Yeah,
don't be a jerk. Let's take the next thing then. So you are approaching people. What's the standard that you should be approaching people? So you're doing your approach correctly, let's say. You're taking your time, you're making it personal. But at some point, they're going to look at you either online or for real, but let's say online. What do you think the standard is? What do you think you should be bringing to the table?
As an artist, visually and
everything, but as an artist, what's
I
the
think
standard?
If you're trying to get somewhere, I think you should have a decent video. It doesn't need to have cost the earth. You can do videos yourself. You should have a decent visual. So at least one decent visual, possibly some live as well that don't sound too bad, that are not too bad. If you can, sometimes you can get those off a phone, so you don't need to spend loads of money. Should have a YouTube channel. You should be very active on all your social media. You should have something out on Spotify and something coming out, and you should be promoting that. Yeah, you should be really active.
What about electronic press kits and that? Do you tend to have a page or somewhere where you can direct people that you're specifically trying to get bookings from?
Yeah, I used to, and I think as you go through the levels, they become less and less. But I would definitely say for an artist starting at EPK, which is just a URL to a page that is private on your website, so you need that URL to go to it, with the links to the video, all the social media, a short bio. I think we've got so many bios of all different lengths, because we've been asked for so many different lengths.
Yeah.
So have a number of bios, all different lengths, but you probably just have a short one on there, and a little Spotify player that streams some of the sounds and some decent images of yourself. No one wants War and Peace, so that would be enough.
Okay. And you were we've chatted on a previous occasion. You were talking about, and I'm going to move towards festivals in a minute because it's a particular area. We've sort of talked about venues, what about set lengths? We've talked about it before, but can you give a bit of advice on what you should be able to bring and whether you promote that, or what should you be able to do if you're having a conversation and the answer is becoming a yes? What should you be able to offer professionally?
You should, if it's a support, you should be able to offer between 30 minutes and 45 minutes. It's probably going to be 20 to 30 minutes, but you need to be able to offer a bit more if they need it. If it's a headline slot, it's going to be 90 minutes, and possibly a little bit extra if you're going to do an encore, because you don't want to walk off at 89 minutes. That looks like you're leaving people, you're meant to be enjoying this, so it's what you want to do. But again, nobody wants you to go on for hours and hours. We're not all Bruce Springsteen, so I'd say, you need to have everything. You also need to have, if you can, thought really hard about your sets, and depending on what audience you're going to approach, how that set is going to be formed. So if it's a new audience, how are you going to slice in a few covers to break through the ice?
Yeah.
How you're going to integrate those and weave those in quite closely to sort of bring them a bit more to you quicker. If it's an audience and it's a headline set and they know you a bit more, well, it's not such an issue.
Right.
But agonising over set lists is something that me and Steve do so often, because we try to sculpt the evening in different ways, and it depends what venue it is, who the people are. So, always have kind of like a few set lists, a few sort of go-to set lists for different sort of events and styles.
Okay. So let's talk about, I mentioned the Curve, mainly because you mentioned it to me. There is a sense, isn't there, that you're on a hiding to nothing and you can't possibly make money, because we all know that if they don't steal it, which is the old days, now they steal it legally with Spotify paying you, a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a penny. And a lot of people starting out, at the end of the day, haven't got unlimited money to just keep going. So there has to be an income stream. So can you, and you've explained it to me and I've read it, and I think it's brilliant. I think it changes the resentment we have, that we do all this work and we invest in time and money and equipment to produce the absolute best we can, and then everybody expects it for free. And it's very easy to be quite bitter almost and resentful. But there is a book called The Curve, which you put me onto. Do you think you could just, in a nutshell, because I know you apply it, I see you applying it, what would you say is the essence of the Curve, and how can it help someone feel that they are actually making progress and there is a real life out there?
Yeah, I think what the Curve does as well, and I'd say to any artist to read it, is also make one really big point in a bigger picture point, which is, and I think a lot of like the vocal students that I teach kind of could hear this, is like, you may not be the next Adele. That doesn't mean that you're in any which way a failure or a loser or not good enough. But it brings it down to something that you can control, rather than thinking, I need to be signed and given a multi-million-pound deal, else that's it. So it brings it down to being in your control. You're a business. This is a business model for you to operate and not be out on the streets. So in essence, it's good because it gives you control. But what it really means is turning followers into super fans. Everyone that knows me knows that I don't really like the word fan, because it goes to fanatic, and I kind of think it's derogatory, but that's what it says. I tend to call people followers, but anyway. So it's building a core fan base that will turn out to gigs, that will support you, that you do have quite a symbiotic relationship with. And I know Patreon does this as well, but I've never wanted to go down that road of charging people for extra. What I do is, you know, there's a Facebook group, and these people that are on that Facebook group, as far as I'm concerned, are the real core, beautiful, amazing people that really support me, and I will give them extra. I don't want to charge them for that through a monthly scheme. I don't. That's something I don't want to do. But basically, the core of the curve is building a model that you really sort of have a real close relationship with your fan or follower base. And it is symbiotic. So you give more to them, they give more to you. And there's all kind of different various ways you can do this. But that's what it's about. It's about smaller picture growing into bigger picture, rather than, okay, it's either I'm signed and I'm Ed Sheeran or I'm nothing.
It's also, hence the title of the curve to me, it's about acknowledging and not being afraid of giving your basic product, your music, the music you write and produce, giving it away free on the internet, because you have a market of 7 billion people, most of which won't give you any money and won't become fans. But you need such a tiny fraction of them if they're enjoying the music for free. So then, rather than resenting it, Spotify paying you nothing, you just go, it's a tool. It gets me out to, you know, especially the internet, gets me out to billions of people worldwide, potentially. I need 0.00001 of them to actually like me and become a fan. So you funnel everything to that personal contact. Once you have that personal contact and they really like your music and they like, then they will buy off you at all sorts of prices. You know, people don't mind spending £25 on a vinyl album if they like you. Whereas they wouldn't spend £1.99 on a stream if they don't care. But you've got such a large market, you need such a tiny proportion of that market to like you. You end up with a loyal following. And I think I heard a statistic, something like a band can keep going, I don't mean get rich, but can keep going on about 1,000 superfans. It's not easy to get 1,000 superfans.
No, it is not easy to get 1,000. I think I'd say probably I've got like 750, 800.
That's what I'm saying. We're not 750, 800 on a you know, marketing stream thing. These are real people who actually follow you.
Yeah, I mean, actually thinking about it, there's probably more than that, because we've got a newsletter, which a lot of people are on online. You know, they're not on social media. So even though the page to me is really important with its 10,000 likes, and I'm not gonna, you know, again, we don't put a lot of monetary promotion into promoting the page. We're not bothered about vanity metrics, because there is a lot of vanity metrics, like, oh, my page has got 30,000 and yours has got
10.
I don't care about that. I just care about the quality of the people that follow me and how much they're into the music, because you can get lost in all that, and at the end of the day, it's meaningless. It is that symbiotic relationship. Who are these people? You know, can I shake the hand at a gig? You know, can I give them a hug? That's what it's all about. It's, you know, and there's so many people buying fake it's kind of cutting out a little bit, but fake Facebook likes, fake streams. I mean, it's so obvious. I could talk about that forever as how you could find it out.
Yeah.
There's a website called Social Blade. You can go and check that out if you want. But there's so many different ways, and I always think, like, I understand the desperation of the artists that do that.
Yeah.
Because I've been in that position where you've sat and gone, oh, I haven't got enough likes. And then you think, oh, God damn it, Becky. You know, but what you've got is absolute quality people that you really know and love.
Yeah. I mean, I know that even, I mean, I've been to your gigs, so I've seen it there. But I even see it online. You can feel that the connection isn't some sort of cold connection, and it isn't a marketing drive. I mean, it has that element, but it isn't a marketing drive. No. It is genuinely you communicating with them. And as I say, just really to anyone who's listening to this who needs to make some money to keep the show on the road, there's no question. You know, you produce merch, you produce albums. You get people buying hard copy albums off you, even though everyone can stream. But you have that, and that's because people want to support you and want to buy something to keep your show on the road because they feel connected to you, which is great.
Absolutely.
So I just wanted to touch on that because I think the doom and gloom is that you can't survive, you can't get any money, and it's not true. There is money, but it has to be on a different basis. So we'd both recommend. I can't remember who wrote it, unfortunately, but the book is called The Curve.
The Curve.
And if you look for The Curve, you will find it, and we'll put a link. I'll put a link up with this so you can get it. And we're not being paid by them. We both just think it's a very, very good analysis.
Colin Speller didn't write it. He read it initially, and I was just like, everyone needs to read this.
Well, you put me on to
if you're in the music industry, read it. Take back control because you can.
Yeah, and you can make a career, and then if you get the number one hit, that kind of magic either strikes or it doesn't it? But you will become a professional working musician, which is what this is about. Now, let me ask you,
Nicholas Lavelle.
Nicholas Lavelle, full credit to him.
There you go.
So, let me ask you about festivals, particularly. We talked about gigs, and I suspect some of it will be the same, but talk to me about, because you play quite a lot of festivals, and I know from even looking at the venues I've done and the gigs, and that's grassroots level, just trying to move up. But, you know, festivals are a big prize cow out there. Lots of people want to do them. Very difficult to, or it's considered very difficult to get in. What would be your strategy for trying to get your first festival gigs that will then hopefully get you in the door?
Well, I think I would definitely start with kind of more grassroots festivals and, you know, not the large festivals. I remember sort of getting onto a couple of first festivals and somebody saying, wow, who's that manager for Rebecca Downs? Because she seems to be doing well. And at the time, the manager was me. Again, doing all the, you know, the research and all the rest of it. So a lot of the time, again, it was me doing really hard research. So looking at all the festivals, as I say, not Reading or Leeds or anything like that. I mean, looking at smaller festivals, looking at the artists on there, finding the contacts. A lot of the time the contacts are hidden because these people don't want to be contacted, which you can understand.
Yeah.
So I'd go to company's house. I'd try and find their names. I'd be messaging the people that were on there that maybe I'd met or supported and saying, do you know who this is? And again, when I found them, I wouldn't pester them. Yeah. The other thing that I used to do was turn up at a festival and speak to them because they're going to be there.
Your local festival.
And ask to be introduced by, you know, if there's a band there that you know or somebody in one of the bands that you know, go.
Yeah.
And speak to these people.
So
again that face-to-face contact.
It's networking, isn't it?
Networking, 100%.
It's probably the strongest tool, isn't it? I keep hearing it. There's no substitute for putting yourself in the right place, and then things tend to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I've got it with that many artists at different points just to get in front of a promoter, and I'm always, you know, happy to do that. You know, when other artists ask me if it works, you know, 'cause sometimes it just wouldn't. But so I used to do a heck of a lot of that. Again, imagine that you're going to be at the bottom of the bill. Imagine that you're gonna, maybe not play to that many people. So what that festival is going to be looking at is how you spin that as well to create before the festival to create noise for them.
Right.
So to try and sell some tickets. I know this comes down to money again, but it all does. So like doing a little video for them, putting it all over your socials, coming to this, tagging in everyone that's playing on the festival. Getting with another artist on the festival and putting a video together of the two of you, so it kind of spans out more.
And you're creating the friendly thing and cross promotion, basically. They get your element, you get their element. That's great.
Absolutely. Trying to make friends with the band on before or after you to do all of that, to share kit as well on the day. So yeah, but not expect to go in at any high level unless you are, there's some bands out there that have put tens of thousands into PR and have been shoved up the list to a festival. But if you're not spending tens of £1,000s on PR to promote the hype, you've got to hype it up yourself.
Right.
So social media beforehand, and then other festivals will look at you. So if you contact them, and they can see how much work you did. You could even send them the links. This is what I did when I was invited to play this festival.
So in fact,
I'd be so happy to do that for you.
Right. So in fact, it's interesting, isn't it, that so long as they're satisfied, your performance will be okay or better. I'm not, the ideal is that you're a knockout performance. But in fact, at this level, that's almost not the most important thing. Obviously, you've got to be good. It's not going to be bad. But actually, it's the other things you're bringing to the table that make you attractive. Yeah. Is that what you're sort of saying? Is that that's what makes you stand out a little bit?
It's taken as read. You're going to be good. That's a no-brainer.
Because otherwise, it dries up anyway. Yeah,
you'll be falling at the first hurdle anyway. Right. So we take as read that you're good and that you've got your act together.
Right.
It's everything else. And there's so many bands that I hear college looking for the managers. And the managers moaning that they won't do anything. Right. They've got to attack them to do, they won't do this and they won't do that, and I've asked them to do this. And it's like, that just doesn't work.
Right.
You've got to be putting stuff out there all the time. If you've been invited to play somewhere for the first time, you've got to really promote that. Tag the promoter in every post. Make him or her aware of what you're doing and how hard you're working for it.
Yeah. It's
and then like that speaks a lot in itself.
It's almost like any business, isn't it? Because if it's a small festival, presumably they've got no problem calling you back the next year. If you've been positive and they like you, there's no reason. It's not like big headliner isn't going to play twice in a row, but presumably someone down the bill will quite possibly be playing regularly at a festival.
Exactly. The other thing that I did, some festivals have like introducing stages. Mm-hmm. And that's a good way in, and it has been for us back in the day. The other thing that we've done to help another band, we were playing a festival, and their manager approached us and said, well, who's the contact for this festival? And he said, well, I'll tell you what, I'll give you the contact, but what I'd do is, they were going to the festival anyway, ticking box.
Yeah.
Tell the guys to take the guitars and the drums, because at the moment people are dropping out, COVID. Let him know you're here with your instruments ready to play. If someone calls last minute, they've got COVID, you're good to go. And you know what? They got a slot.
I heard a great story that's how Thin Lizzy got going, is they would literally drive around in their white van full of the kit on a Friday night, and they'd either go off and get drunk because they weren't doing a gig, but they had everything in the van, and if the support act didn't show up, they went straight into the stage and played. And that's one of their main things. They would drive around the area and just they knew their venues, and they'd literally just have a van ready to go to see if anyone didn't show up, and then they'd be on. Which I think is
absolutely.
A great story.
I think these days with COVID, I think, it's even more, because I know a lot, we're just told to go out now when we've got it, but a lot of people won't want that, even the promoters. So there is more opportunity, I think, to slip in if someone is unfortunately ill,
You say
so why not?
You say unfortunately, but I think this is the music industry. I think you're describing vulture behaviour, circling.
There,
Yeah, of
and
course.
you've got your gear,
and you can go.
you're good to go.
No, that
You
sounds
know, but again, this band had made it known we're going to go down. We're just going to check this festival out.
Well, you're almost saying to the promoter,
That's it.
aren't you? You're almost saying to the promoter, I'm not pressuring you or anything, but it's just, here's some safety for you. If you get the slot that would otherwise be embarrassing, we're on site, we're one phone call away, and all of a sudden...
We'll do it.
So if you have a problem, we can solve the problem instantly. I think that sounds a great idea.
Absolutely. And that's saying to them, look how hard we're working.
Yeah. So it's an attitude thing. What about money? Like, in terms of, do you think you're going to get, I mean, especially in that first 2 years, perhaps, trying to get out from the bottom, are you going to get paid to do these gigs realistically, or are you even going to get your expenses, or is this stuff you've got to bite the bullet and just say, well, what do you think the situation is, and should you hold out to get paid, or should you just accept you've got to get out there and play, even if it costs you?
It all depends on what the gig is and what it's going to yield you.
Right.
And that should never change that in your head. So if there's a gig and you can support someone and there's going to be 100 people there and you're not going to get paid, go and do the gig, because there's going to be 100 people there that have never seen you before. And I know it's terrible, and I know people will say, no, you've got to hang out for money. But if you were to try and appear, if you were to try and promote through the newspapers, magazines, social media to get 100 people to a gig from an artist just starting, that would cost you way more than you taking yourself to the gig.
Yeah.
So do it. It's a chance to get in front of people, and again, to shake their hand after the gig and have a little chat.
Yeah.
You know, and then you know,
and maybe generate 5 people or 2 people or 5 people or 10 people who will like you, and then you've pulled them into that new group that are ultimately going to sustain you.
Yeah, I mean, they might turn out to be, you know, a super follower, somebody that's like really, you know, with you forever.
Yeah.
But I don't think a Facebook like is never going to do that.
Right.
You know, I think he might grow from that, but he's never going to be that. But he could be that from the start of that gig. I think if you're asking to, you know, to play, if you're doing a headline show, you should get paid for it.
Mm-hmm. That's the difference.
You know, I think you should get paid for it, because you're having to work real hard there and bring in people. You've got a whole other, you know, conversation around tickets. You know, if you're trying to be an original artist, you've got to go at some point down the ticket route, and as soon as you start with tickets on the door, that's it. You know, there's a line in the sand, because you can't suddenly start charging on the door at one venue, then the next week you're free to enter, because that's not going to help the audience at all, is it? They're going to be really upset about that.
Right.
So there is that kind of thing, and a lot of people do, like, you know, how many tickets you sell, you get a proportion of, and stuff like that when you're starting out, which again puts kind of the onus back on you. Not that, you know, I think the promoter should be doing their job as well, but a lot of the time it is up to the artist.
Right.
So
that sounds great. That sounds
it all depends on the gig.
Right.
In a real lovely world, yes, it would be great if every artist got paid, but we don't live in an ideal world, and we've just got to look at the gig and say, what does this gig give to me? Is it, there's no one going to be there, well, I need to be paid.
Yeah.
Is it, there's going to be loads of people there? That's a real opportunity. And look how I can spin that social media-wise. Hey, I can invite a photographer, can get loads of stuff. It all depends on the show.
So the question is, what can I get out of it? And that should be a wide question. And if there's an answer that's positive, whether it's financial or whether it's promotion or whether it's just being seen, that's your decider. I think you're saying, isn't
well,
it?
yeah, I mean, there's so many bands that are, you know, are buying on to support tours, and I know a lot of the public don't really know about that, but it's, you know, it's widely known that, you know, you'll be paying, if it's a big support tour, you could be paying, you know, thousands of pounds to be playing in front of somebody's audience, because there is no there's no other thing that can substitute for being in front of an audience.
And that's
that
more
connection.
record industry level, isn't it? Generally, that you have your relationship with the record industry and a record label or something, and they will be getting you to pay this money out of your funds.
Oh no, not just record industry. No, at every level. At my level, at every level, you'll be able to buy on other tours, and some people will do tour after tour after tour, and remember, you've got to, you've not only got to buy on, but you've got to put people in hotels. You've got to, people are not in work. It's a huge outlay. We've been really lucky with supports we've done. We've really had to do that, but we've still had an awful lot of expense going out the door. Right. Support tours cost us a lot of money, so we don't do them very often.
Right, okay. No,
unless we're invited to do them. And then you have a different relationship where we've had that more recently in the Rebecca Downs band.
Is that almost more like mates that you've built up over time, other bands, and they want you to come with them and you come with them, or is it a bit more still business orientated?
A little bit mates, but also that our profile has grown as a Rebecca Downs band, so they know that we're going to bring something to the table. Yeah. We're not just a complete unknown.
People are becoming to see you and then see them, so they actually get it back. Yeah. Well, to finish then, do's and don'ts. Okay.
Okay.
So, someone's in the position, they're making these first approaches, they're doing their first gigs, perhaps. Yeah, they're getting on that third stage or the acoustic tents or whatever it might be. What do you do, and what do you absolutely not do? The do's and don'ts.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so we've spoken a lot about the do's, so I'll go to the don'ts first because they're more obvious.
And a bit more fun.
Turn up. I think these are really obvious, but turn up on time, for Christ's sake. Do not keep anyone waiting. Obviously, be really nice to everyone. You wouldn't believe, the amount of people I've sort of walked past and they're so in their own ego. You're like, darling, you're not saving lives, you're playing music. Chill out. I don't care who you are, you can still be nice. But especially when you're starting out, be really nice. Be accommodating. Don't be an idiot. Number one, set up quickly. So be super pro. Set up quickly. You might have like a 15-minute changeover. Be on it. Number two, get off the goddamn stage when your time's up, and do not run over your time as a support or on a festival. It doesn't matter if the crowd's yelling for more. You are running by the festival schedule, and that is tightly run.
And they'll never forgive you, will they? If you've overrun and taken your encore because you're on it and the crowd love you, you won't be invited back. You'll be done.
Absolutely not. And you might be hauled off stage anyway because it's not your show. And if it's a festival, it's a combination show. And if you're a support, it's not your show. You're there as a supporting artist. I mean, I've been at a festival once and there was a 20-minute changeover. And the lead singer was chatting to one of the audience, rolling his leads up really slowly. You don't do that. You grab your stuff, you walk off the stage, you wrap your leads up after. You don't wrap the book, Come on, people.
And you go out, the front. You go out the front to chat to people if you want to do that, don't you? You get the hell off the stage.
I'll see you in a minute. Yeah. And you see them in a minute. Yeah. Normally at a good festival, they get you off really quick. They're on and they, off. Don't assume you're going to use anyone's gear. For God's sake, if you're a band that's got a drummer or, ask if there's a drum kit for the festival. And if there isn't, talk to the band before and after. And if there isn't, discuss how the hell are you going to, sound check in 20 minutes if you've got a full kit to move on and off. Yeah. Prepare, think of the worst that can happen. Ideally, kit share and be nice. Never assume anything. Never assume it's going to go right. Always assume it's going to be tough, especially at a festival. Such short changeovers. be there, do the best that you can, entertain the crowd. You know, it doesn't matter what's going wrong, doesn't matter what sound you've got in your monitors or your ears. At the end of the day, you're there to do a job, so just do it. So that's kind of don't really. Don't be an idiot. Just don't be an idiot. You know, be nice.
That's the number one. It's interesting, isn't it? Because everybody thinks of the industry, especially we use the phrase industry, the music industry. Everyone thinks it's sort of vicious and backbiting and climbing, and you know that's because that's what we hear in the news when we get feuds, you know, Oasis feuds and things like that. But actually, in any of these competitive industries, it's actually the nice people who meet, survive. A lot of people don't make money, isn't it? I think that's the main thing. You know, these promoters who are the gatekeepers in many ways, they could make an awful lot more money doing something else. So so they really haven't got a lot of time for. There's aggro inherently in it when something goes wrong. They don't need time for extra aggro from egos, do they? That's I think the lesson in there.
Absolutely. You know, the other thing it just reminded me of, on smaller festivals, they might not have been thought through as well as a bigger festival. So you've got to kind of do that for them with, as say, speaking to other bands beforehand and just being on your game, basically being as pro as you can and making your set run smoothly. The do's. Pretty much the opposite to everything you just said.
Don't do the don'ts. Yeah.
Yeah, number one, be really nice. I won't mention their name, but I know of you know, about an outfit that I knew of around the Midlands. They were doing so well, and this is going back about 10 years, but they were doing so well. They got two really big agents, and basically they blew it all by, I'm not going to swear, annoying everyone.
Yeah.
And being super, super diva-y and egomaniac. And, you know, no one cares. There's somebody else around the corner playing something similar. They're just going to hire them.
Yeah.
You know.
So what about last things then? What about, why do it? Well, you've been doing it for, I can't even calculate how many years. But it can't be. But it can't be many. Yeah, absolutely. Since you started at 13, we'll work on the basis of 5-year career. But what's the good side of it? Let's finish on that. Why do you still do it? What makes you still do it? What drives you? What's the good side of it?
Apart from the obvious, which is the creation of music, which is something that spins around in my head, and I know spins around in Steve's head 24/7. It's like we can't shut it off, thank God. And the fact that we work together so well, and I've never worked with anyone like I work with Steve. It's amazing. So the creation of your own music is fantastic. And the going on stage and seeing people singing your songs and wearing your T-shirt is like, I feel so unbelievably humble. But the number one is, it's for me and what we have created, it is like a family. Like, you know, I you know, people have met and fallen in love and are now married that met at one of my gigs. You know, it's the simple things. It's somebody coming to me after a show and just, you know, saying your music means the world to me.
Yeah.
That's you know, that's it. Because as I always say, like, they're the most important, because you can make music as much as you like, but it's that connection, isn't it, all the time with humans, other people, that they've heard your music.
Something
and they've listened to it. They know the lyrics better than I do.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, Rebecca, you know, it's like
my memories are what it used to be.
Yeah,
but you know, that, and just the simplest little thing, or somebody saying something online. You know, somebody commented the other day, like, I heard you on so and so, and you know, your voice or other song, and it just lifts you for the whole day. Yeah. You just think that's that's it. You know,
a friend, someone else I spoke to, turned around and said, you know, especially starting out, they're not really listening to you maybe, and you know, you're just playing, and you're in the background a bit. and then just one person's listening, you can spot them.
That's-
You can spot them. You can have a lot of people being disinterested, and you're just keeping your head down, and you're performing, you're doing it. But you can spot the one person who's sat listening. And I had that when I did my Luxembourg tour that you know about. And, I'm playing a venue, and, there were some venues people were very interested in, and some venues they weren't particularly interested. But one of those venues, I just, in the middle of it, I'm just doing my set, and I saw, just two people, couple, just sat watching and listening. And that was fine. That suddenly became, that was my gig. I let my eyes wander around so everyone thinks I'm playing a room. The truth is I'm singing to those two people. And that connection is very real, isn't it? And very instant.
Absolutely.
It's really, really lovely.
And as I say, it's very humbling. I just, it still amazes me and gives me the biggest thrill that someone is listening to my music. I almost feel like, it really emotional just talking about it. It's just, everything like, being in HMV and playing the Symphony Hall and all these things, it's great, but nowhere near that with that connection with people. And I really love them.
Yeah.
And people might think,
genuine.
oh yeah, right. It's like, you have no idea.
The thing is,
I really,
it's real.
I love them.
Yeah.
I love those people. They're so much more important.
But it's almost what
than
keeps you in the game, isn't it?
Know.
Yeah, it's almost what keeps you in the game. That's what you
Yeah.
you do a lot of work. You do the work for that, don't you? It's not purely commercial. The commercial is what keeps the show on the road. But you actually
We wouldn't
do
be
it for that.
doing it if it was purely commercial.
Yeah, of course not. Well, Rebecca, I want to really thank you. Thank you for giving me this interview. It has been illuminating for me. As I've quite clearly said, this is lots of self-interest because I am exactly that person that's asking you these questions, and I hope anyone watching this gets the same I get out of it, which is a really, really good real-world map into actually keeping going and getting into the industry and doing it. So I want to thank you. I consider myself one of your super fans because I am always out there. And I will, hopefully you can send me, things. When I put this up, I want to put all the links there as well. And you got a new album coming out, is that right? Did you say you've got one in autumn? Later in the
autumn? Yeah, so the single's already out. Hold on.
Blatant plug. Go on.
RebeccaDowns.com for all your Rebecca Downs needs.
That's what we want. All right. Thank you very much.